Hey guys, and welcome to the first Biker Bytes Sunday. Yes, if you saw the special announcement, you know exactly what this series is going to be about. If not, check the tab, go watch that video to hear what this is going to be about before you watch this video. So, our first story from Biker Bytes. As you saw the title on the thumbnail, the feared bikers brought my dead son a birthday cake today. So obviously, quick thing, trigger warning, this does have to do with the death of a child. It does have to do with a building burning down. So yes, just a trigger warning for anybody, but again, I would not read this if it wasn't good, if it wasn't a good story. So, here we go. An old biker club showed up at the burnt ruins of my house with a birthday cake for my boy, who didn't exist anymore. And I had to tell them the boy died in the fire they were standing in. These weren't just any bikers, the most feared men in 3 counties, each one looking like they'd rather fight than breathe. But there they stood, in their weathered leathers, holding a small blue cake with 5 candles, asking where little Jake was so they could celebrate like they had every year since he was born. The one holding the cake, Tank, they called him, had tears already forming in his eyes as he stared at what used to be my son's bedroom window, now just a black hole in a skeleton of charred timber. I recognized them from the news, from police warnings, from every mother's nightmare about who their children might meet. But Jake had called them his uncles. And now I had to explain why the only family my son ever truly loved would never see him blow out another candle. What I didn't know was why the most dangerous motorcycle club in the state had been celebrating my autistic son's birthday, or why they looked more broken than I felt standing in the ashes of everything I'd lost. "Where's Jake?" Tank asked again, his voice cracking like a teenage boy's, despite his massive frame. "We got his favorite, chocolate with superhero sprinkles." The other 3 bikers stood behind him in a leather wall, bones, whiskey, and chains. Names that should have terrified me. Instead, all I saw were 4 men, holding dollar store party supplies, confused why a 5-year-old wasn't running out to greet them. "The fire was 3 weeks ago," I managed to say. "Jake, he didn't make it out." The cake hit the ground. Blue frosting splattered across the ash-covered driveway. Tank dropped to his knees. Beside it, this giant of a man, crumbling like the burned walls behind us. "No," he whispered. "No, we just saw him last month. He was showing us his dinosaur books. He knew all their names." I should have been afraid. 4 Diablo's motorcycle club members, men who'd supposedly done terrible things, were having emotional breakdowns in my destroyed front yard. But all I felt was a strange kinship. They were mourning Jake too. "How did you know my son?" I asked, though part of me wondered if I wanted to know why criminal bikers had been visiting my autistic 5-year-old. Bones, the oldest of them, with a gray beard down to his chest, stepped forward. "Started 2 years ago. We were riding past, and Jake was having one of his episodes. That's the right word. He was on the lawn screaming, hitting himself. You were trying to calm him down. I remembered that day. Jake's meltdowns were legendary in the neighborhood. Most people crossed the street to avoid us. We stopped, Bones continued. Don't know why. Tank here, he's got a nephew with autism. He walked over, sat down on the grass, and just started making motorcycle noises. Vroom, vroom. Really quick like. Jake stopped screaming, Whiskey added, speaking for the first time. Came over and touched Tank's bike. First time I ever saw a kid calm down that fast. After that, we'd ride by sometimes, Chains said. Check on him. He'd hear our bikes from blocks away, come running out. Started calling us his uncles. You never said anything, I said, feeling hollow. Never introduced yourselves to me. Tank looked up from where he knelt, cake frosting on his hands. You were scared of us. We could see it. Didn't want to make it worse. But Jake wasn't scared. Jake just saw motorcycles and friends. We brought him presents. Bones reached into his jacket, pulled out a small wrapped package. For his birthdays, Christmas. Just left them on the porch when you weren't looking. The dinosaur books, the motorcycle toys, the leather jacket that was too big, but Jake insisted on wearing anyway. Anonymous gifts, I'd assumed, were from the charity organizations. This was supposed to be the year, Tank said, standing slowly. We were going to ask you properly. See if maybe we could take him for a ride? Just around the block. Had a special helmet made and everything. He pointed to the small motorcycle, and I finally noticed. It had a tiny sidecar attached. They'd built my autistic son a sidecar. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why did you care so much? The four men looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, Bones spoke. Because he saw us. He said simply, not the Diablos, not criminals or thugs, or whatever the news calls us. Jake just saw four guys who made cool noises and had neat bikes. Do you know how long it's been since someone looked at us without fear? He'd run up to Tank, Whiskey said, almost smiling. This little kid coming up to the scariest looking dude in the state and just hug his leg. Called him Uncle Tank, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Taught him to count using motorcycle bolts, Chains added. Kid was smart. Really smart. Just different. We know different, Tank said quietly. We've been different our whole lives. Outsiders. Jake was an outsider too, in his way. But when we were together, none of that mattered. I walked to the burnt ruins of what had been Jake's room. The bikers followed, careful not to disturb the ash and debris. He was sleeping when the electrical fire started, I said. Electrical problem in the kitchen. I tried to get to him, but the smoke, the heat. Firefighters had to drag me out. You were here? Bones asked. In the hospital. We checked the hospitals. 3 weeks for smoke inhalation and burns. I showed them my still bandaged arms. Got out yesterday. Came here because I don't know why. Nowhere else to go. Tank walked into the ruins, stepping carefully through the debris. He stopped where Jake's bed would have been, knelt down and began moving aside chunks of burnt wood. The others joined him without a word. 4 tough bikers, carefully excavating the remains of a little boy's room. "Here," Chains said softly, pulling out a melted but recognizable toy. His dinosaur. The T-Rex he always carried. They found more. Burned books, metal toy motorcycles, pieces of the life I built for my son, now just artifacts in the ash. Each item they handled with a reverence that broke my heart all over again. "We should have been here," Tank said suddenly, his voice fierce. "Should have been watching. We ride by 3-4 times a week, but that night..." "You couldn't have known," I said. But he shook his head. We're supposed to protect family. That's what the club is about. Family. And Jake was family." Bones pulled out his phone, started making calls. Within 30 minutes, the rumble of motorcycles filled the air. Dozens of them. Leather-clad riders appeared from everywhere. Not just Diablos. Other clubs, too. Rivals, who would normally never share the same street. "Word spreads," Whiskey exclaimed, seeing my shocked expression. "When a kid dies, especially a kid like Jake, boundaries don't matter." They lined up their bikes along the street, engines off, heads bowed. A memorial formation I'd seen in movies, but never in person. For my son. For Jake, who'd seen past leather and tattoos to find 4 uncles, who'd loved him without condition. Tank approached me holding something. "We were saving this for today. For his birthday. Think he would have wanted you to have it." It was his leather vest, child-sized, with honorary Diablo stitched on the back below it. "Jake, bravest rider," and colorful letters. It even had little patches. Dinosaurs instead of skulls. Books instead of weapons. "You made him a vest?" I whispered, clutching it to my chest. Was supposed to be a surprise. We cleared it with the national chapter and everything. First time in 40 years a non-member got colors, Bones whispered at his eyes. Kid was special. The gathered bikers stayed for hours. They shared stories I've never heard. Jake at the park, where they'd stop to help him get off too high swings. Jake at the grocery store, recognizing Chain's voice 3 aisles away, and abandoning me to find his uncle. Jake drawing motorcycle pictures that Tank had apparently saved every single one of. As the sun set, they began leaving. Small tokens in the ruins. Patches from their vests. Toy motorcycles. Pictures I didn't know existed of Jake sitting on various bikes, always wearing that too big leather jacket and smiling his crooked smile. "We'll rebuild it," Tank said suddenly. "The house. The club will rebuild it." I can't afford." "Didn't ask if you could afford it." He cut me off. "Said we'll rebuild it. Jake's room especially. Make it perfect. Dinosaur wallpaper and everything." "But I can't live here," I admitted. "Too many memories. Too much pain." The bikers exchanged looks. Bones nodded slowly. "Then we'll build it and donate it. To a family with a kid like Jake. Someone who needs a fresh start. Jake would like that." They kept their word. 3 months later, I watched as the Diablos Motorcycle Club, along with a dozen other clubs, rebuilt my house from the ground up. They hired contractors, but did much of the work themselves. These dangerous men, carefully hanging dinosaur wallpaper, installing special locks for children who might wander, building ramps for accessibility. Jake's room became a sensory paradise. Soft lights, padded corners, everything a child with autism might need to feel safe. On the wall they mounted a plaque. Jake's room, where different is beautiful. The day they finished, they held another ride. Hundreds of bikers this time, from across the state. They rode in formation past the rebuilt house, engines rumbling in unison. The sound that had always calmed my son, now a symphony of remembrance. Tank found me watching from across the street. "We'll still come by," he said. "Check on the new family. Their kid Rosie. She's got Down syndrome. Loves motorcycles, just like Jake did." "He'd be happy," I managed to say. "We're setting up a fund," Bones added, joining us. "Jake's fund. Help families with special need kids. Buy equipment, pay for therapy, whatever they need. Figures, it's what he'd want. Helping other kids who are different." They gave me a photo album they compiled. Pictures of Jake with his uncles that I'd never seen. Jake on Tank's shoulders at some motorcycle rally. Jake surrounded by dozens of tough-looking bikers. All of them focused intently as he explained dinosaur facts. Jake asleep against Whiskey's chest during what looked like a club meeting. Tiny hand clutching a motorcycle patch. The last photo broke me completely. It was dated just a week before the fire. Jake standing with his 4 uncles, wearing his too big leather jacket and a huge smile, holding a sign they'd help him make. "I love my uncles. They make the best motorcycle sounds." That night, I stood in a motel room, holding my son's honorary vest, finally understanding something. Jake hadn't just found 4 random bikers to befriend. He found 4 men who understood, being judged, being outsiders, being different. And in return, they'd found a little boy who saw them clearly, not as threats, but as protectors. Not as criminals, but as family. The Diablos Motorcycle Club still ride by the rebuilt house every week. They still stop if Rosie is outside making motorcycle noises until she laughs. They still maintain Jake's memorial, a small bronze plaque by the door that reads, "In memory of Jake, who taught the toughest men that love comes in all forms." And every year on his birthday, 4 bikers show up with a chocolate cake with superhero sprinkles. They eat it in the driveway, telling stories about a little boy who saw past leather and reputation, to find uncles who would have done anything to save him. They leave one piece uneaten. Jake's piece, they call it. Because in their world, in the brotherhood of the road, family is forever. Even when that family is a 5-year-old boy with autism who just wanted someone to make motorcycle sounds with him. The cake dissolves from the rain, but the love remains. 4 dangerous men, forever changed by a little boy who called them uncle. And somewhere, I believe, Jake is still counting motorcycle bolts and explaining dinosaur facts to anyone who will listen. Different is beautiful. My son taught them that, and now they teach it to every child they meet, one motorcycle sound at a time. I wanted to choose this story as the first one because, first of all, the day I'm recording this, if you haven't seen the video, it's the day after the 30th anniversary of my grandfather dying in a fire. a lot of what these bikers taught Jake, he taught me. So I wanted this to also be a tribute to my grandfather. He may not have rode, but as a lot of bikers, he was a veteran. And so, when I read this story, I knew this was going to be the first story. To all those out there, like Jake, you have uncles, you have aunts, you have brothers, you have sisters. And again, to the parents out there, remember, sometimes angels have tattoos, wear leather, and ride chrome and steel. I hope you enjoyed the first Biker Bytes Sunday. I'll see you next week.